All right. Speaking of the Sixers, the kind of the big thing that happened last week was Jokic won his second straight MVP, right? And I didn't necessarily agree with that. I thought Embiid should have won it. Now, last year, I kind of understood why he didn't win because he missed 20 games, and there were only 72 games last year, so he only played 52. But he led the league in scoring average, and I was a little surprised that Jokic won it. What did you guys think? Did you guys think that Jokic deserved to win it? Do you think Embiid got robbed, kind of like me, or do you think maybe a guy like Devin Booker or Giannis should have won it?
Man, I think it was a two-man race between Jokic and Embiid. And in my opinion, and that's like what a bank robbery looks like, in my opinion, what they did to my boy Joel Embiid. I'm right there with you, JJ. He led the league in points per game. He was a beast, and the story matters. That's one thing that I'm big on. The story matters. Earlier in the season, he was playing with his prima donna Ben Simmons, who was supposed to be his guy. They were supposed to be the two. Philadelphia rocking out, getting it done. Ben Simmons starts crying about whatever. That's a whole nother topic. But Ben Simmons starts crying. He's not there now. Joel Embiid is basically the only real true true player who can really get anything done on that team, man. So he's seen double teams, triple teams. He's seen it all, and yet he was still getting it done. Earlier in the season, do we not remember when Philadelphia 76ers were the number one seed when they were extremely dominant? And also, I think something else that story matters, and one thing I always say is like the MVP award should be given after the playoffs. It should not be given before the playoffs. It should be something that your MVP, the most valuable player, should rise to the occasion. And yeah, I get it. Jokic got bounced in the first round, but he was facing the team in the Western Conference Finals. Embiid, come on, man. Face concussion. Face fracture, concussion, fractured thumb, all a fractured shooting thumb, right? And he played through all of that. And mind you, I said this when after Joel Embiid came back for that game 3 and they actually took it, the first 2 games, they got the 76ers got just obliterated on the glass. They got obliterated in the paint. Game 3, what happened? Not only did the Sixers win, but the 76ers got more rebounds and killed the Heat on the glass. And they also did not let the Heat score nearly as many points in the paint. I believe game 1 to 2, the Heat scored 50 plus points in the paint. Game 3, Joel Embiid, 28. So, he, in my opinion, is also someone else who you could consider also for Defensive Player of the Year. You could consider him for Defensive Player of the Year, MVP. In my opinion, he got robbed, and also, so I know I keep adding stuff. Joel Embiid is just so damn good. But look, man, also I think that he should have got these past couple of years. If you're talking about just performance and his play, he's played like the MVP, but he hasn't played enough games these past couple of years to be the MVP. And I agree with that argument. You gotta be there to be the MVP. But if you look at just those performances, I think he should have been MVP last season too. But yeah, shout out Jokic though, because the Nuggets would have been the worst team in the league if it wasn't for him though. So I understand that argument as well.
Yeah. When I hear that, and I know John was a strong advocate of Embiid all year, but when I look at this MVP race, I thought 3 players, when it comes down to it, could have been deserving of the MVP this year. And that was number 1, Nikola Jokic, who won it, Joel Embiid, and Giannis Antetokounmpo. So when I look at the 3 of those players, all of them had deserving campaigns. All of their teams were playoff teams. But where I see the top 2 candidates between Embiid and Jokic, where I see the difference, number 1, the Philadelphia 76ers throughout this. And I remember back to this day when they brought in James Harden, I said, this is going to affect whether people want to believe this or not. It's going to affect the candidacy for MVP for Joel Embiid, right or wrong. The media, who are the voters, and I think it's criminal, and I've heard multiple players complain about this being the case, that media gets to vote on awards because maybe they won't like a player, or they see the narrative of, similar to James Harden, MVP himself coming to to the aid of Joel Embiid, and that could be the storyline there. So I think it's absurd that the media has the impact, is what I'm trying to say, to determine awards, first team this, first team that, affecting contracts and how much they get paid. But going back to the MVP race, I saw that was a downfall for Embiid. But then I look at Nikola Jokic, who won the MVP last season. And what did he do this season without two of the best three players, Michael Porter Jr. Leaving the season out with back surgery early on in the year, Jamal Murray out the whole season. Yes, they were the 6th seed. They got bounced in the first round, but he only improved his statistics from last year. And the advanced stats metrics that have been determined and used for the past few years in the NBA to determine the MVP, he led the league in most of those categories. So I think that's a pretty deserving case in itself for Jokic. And I just think the Nuggets were, without him, they were a play-in team, maybe. No, definitely not a play-in team, lottery team without him. And to do what he did, yes, they got bounced, but it's a regular season award. I mean, that's what we're told, right? It's a regular season award. And I think he was the best player statistically, but what he did for that team to keep them relevant was just unbelievable, in my opinion. And Joel Embiid, like I said, had James Harden halfway through the season.
Yeah, I think a lot of people did kind of forget about Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr., and those were big injuries. I think Jamal Murray missed the whole season this year, and you had Michael Porter Jr. who played 9 games. So that was a thing too. And yes, Jokic looked great and all, but I don't know. I just thought that Embiid should have won it this year. I'm not sure Embiid will have another chance to win it again, to be honest with you, because to be an MVP candidate 2 straight years is pretty incredible, and to do it for the 3rd straight year would be. The only person that really did that is LeBron. And of course, MJ did that way back in the day too. But, to do that 3 straight years would be really hard. So, I think he got robbed. But again, Jokic wasn't a terrible selection either. So we'll see what happens. And, both players got bounced, but we'll see what they do next year as well.